This is the August 26th, 2025 regular meeting of the Chatham County Savannah Metropolitan Planning Commission. The Planning Commission consists of Ms. Karen Cherry, Chairwoman, Mr. Travis Coles, Vice Chairman, Mr. Tom Wildwoody, Secretary, Ms. Lorraine Bowles, Treasurer. Board members are Mr. Dwayne Stevens, Ms. Tracy Ammon, Mr. Joseph Irvine, Mr. Michael Kagler, Ms. Amanda Wilson, Mr. Jay Elder, Mr. Jeff Nortricia, Mr. Joseph Welch, Ms. Corinne Ross, and Mr. Stephen Pluff. The MPC Executive Director is Melanie Wilson.
Planning Commission will now come to order. We're going to pause and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please, if you'd stand. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. For staff, petitioners, and members of the public who are participating, our procedures will be as follows. The agenda is broken down into several parts. First, notices, proclamations, and acknowledgments. Next, the consent agenda, which consists of items for which the applicant is in agreement with staff recommendation and there are no known objections. This will be followed by regular business, old business, and adjournment. For each agenda item on regular business, the staff will make a presentation. The staff presentation will then be followed by a presentation from the petitioner should they elect to do so. The petitioner will be allotted a time frame of no more than 20 minutes. The board may then ask questions of the petitioner or staff for clarification. Afterwards, the floor will be open for public comment. If you wish to comment on an item that the board is considering at the time, members of the public that are in person must fill out a speaker card, a blue speaker card, and hand it to staff. Ms. Helms, the staff's one showing you. If you're participating virtually, use the raise your hand feature on your screen. Do not use the feature until the item you want to comment on is being considered. At the appropriate time, you will be recognized and staff will unmute your microphone. At the end of your allotted time, as determined by the chair, your microphone will be muted and the chair will recognize the next speaker. The total public comment time will be less than or equivalent to the petitioner's presentation time. Therefore, for those participating online, it is important to use the raise your hand feature during the hearing on that item if you want to speak on a petition. Once the floor is closed for public comment on a petition, no additional public speakers will be allowed. If you are not certain you want to speak, still use the raise your hand feature, or if in person, fill out the blue card and you will have the option to decline when your name is called. After public comment, the petitioner will have the opportunity for rebuttal and then address any additional needed questions by the board. Finally, the board will take action. All right, I need a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We do have two items that were requested. We have no notices, proclamations, or acknowledgements. We do have two items requested to be removed from the final agenda. The first is a special use solid waste transfer station permit in IL zoning district, 6 Patton Road. Is there anyone here to speak on that item? 6 Patton Road, the transfer waste station. All right, the second one that we have is a master plan for Crown Castle Fiber LLC. Is there anyone here to speak on the Crown Castle Fiber project? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There were no items requested to be withdrawn. On the consent agenda, approval of the July 15th, 2025 MPC meeting minutes and a major subdivision Brookline Phase 5. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I also need a motion on the major subdivision Brookline Phase 5.
Motion to approve, Plunk. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're on to no old business. We're on to regular business. There's a master plan amendment for Grand Prize of America Avenue, 25003915-CA.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This is Edward Morrow, Director of Development Services here at the MPC. Your first regular business item today is a master plan amendment for the Hutchinson Island, I'm sorry, it has another name. It escaped me for a second. But it is the plan development for Hutchinson Island. There is a apartment development at parcel 9 of this PUD where initially there was a sign that was omitted, I guess, in order to create a space for the apartment signage. And so today we're here to consider the placement of a sign location for that. On your screen you can see the future land use is indicated as planned development, and the zoning is PD, again, consistent with that Hutchinson Island master plan, Savannah Harbor master plan, that's the one. And so it's this parcel 9 here that we're looking at. It's a multifamily parcel that was estimated at about 290 apartments to go on site. You can see that this is somewhat interior here. And so this is the chosen location where a signage easement has been established for this. It's about 10 feet wide, and it's on parcel 6 within this Hutchinson Island master plan. And so this, for the purpose of allowing folks that are visiting here at the island, you will come down, I believe this is Resort Drive, and then you can see this sign at the intersection of Resort Drive and Grand Prize. And so just to show you, this is what the sign is estimated to look like. Again, they're not necessarily specific standards. This is an image of what we expect it to look like. The recorded easement for this location is about 10 feet wide. And again, it has been worked out privately amongst these property owners. It's located here on this corner of the property. So With that, MPC staff does recommend approval of this request to amend the Savannah Harbor Master Plan to permit the placement of a sign for the apartment development on parcel 9. The sign is to be located on parcel 6.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Thank you, Edward. Robert McCorkle here on behalf of the petitioner, Hutchinson Island Apartments, which is part of Daniel Management. If you play golf out at Savannah Harbor, you know the apartments are built. It's 6 buildings, 288 units back there. The picture that was up here before, I may be going the wrong way. You can see here, it's actually on the backside of the racetrack, the old racetrack. And so if you ever driven down there, you would have no way of knowing it's there when you come down Resort Drive. And so when this parcel was actually originally acquired from the owners of Parcel 6 and the other apartment complex that have already been built there by the K's, they entered into a perpetual easement for the purpose of putting this sign in this exact location. So that was recorded back in 2021 when the original deal was done. So there is a perpetual easement for the purpose of having this sign. My clients entered into a development agreement with the city, which ended up working out some very much needed drainage improvements back there around the golf course that have been completed, and so it's allowed for the road to actually be opened back up that has been closed up for years, and so now the road's open back up. They will move forward with getting their sign approved, and the city, because the sign is off-site and not technically on their parcel, we had to go through a process of resolving it. So they asked us to apply for this master plan amendment to permit the sign to be put onto the easement that already exists for that sign. And so that's what we're here to ask for today, and we support staff's recommendation for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? All right. I have 2 little questions.
Okay?
The first is, it does not affect the drainage easement in that area, correct?
Not at all, no, ma'am.
Okay. The other is, does it affect sight distance at the corner for vehicles?
I don't think so. It's a little bit off of the actual right-of-way. There's actually a barrier there along that turn, along the curve, and it's back inside the barrier. And so I've driven it several times, and I don't think it has anything, but obviously the city's going to have to sign off on what we
Okay.
ultimately put
All
in
right.
place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any public input on this? All right. Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Plunk, motion to approve.
Bowles, second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Amick?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Kegler?
Yes.
Mr. Melder?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Notrika?
Yes.
Mr. Plunk?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
And Mr. Woody?
Yes.
All right, I too say yes. Motion passes. Our next agenda item is a master plan amendment for 1025 West Gwinnett Street.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Edward Morrow again. This is a petition for a minor master plan amendment for the parcel at 1025 West Gwinnett Street. This parcel has a somewhat extensive zoning history in association with the Canal District improvements that are proposed. You can see here on the future land use map, it's indicated for downtown expansion, and the current zoning is PD. The S that you see next to that PD speaks to the idea that this is a site plan specific. There are conditions that are associated with this. So if you happen to see that annotation, you will know that there were conditions that were attached to the rezoning by City Council. Many of those are promulgated at this level in the course of our discussions. And so you can see from the flood zone and wetland maps that this is an area that is heavily inundated in the course of a storm event. And so these pose significant development challenges on this site. And so it has taken some time to get to the point that there is an actionable site plan. There is a specific development plan, a specific master plan that had been previously approved for this site. It is not the preferred method of development by the current owner, and so you're requested today to review a new proposal for the site. Just to go through the zoning history briefly, this was originally rezoned back in 2006. Also, again, in 2008, it went from PBC to PRIPB with 4 conditions, one of which was in question in association with this petition. So the approval of the associated rezoning of this site to PRIPB classification by the mayor and aldermen of Savannah, obtain all necessary approvals from the city, revise the plan to correctly show the size of the health club to be 17,000 square foot, which is the condition that was in question. And the petitioner shall, at a minimum, construct streets abutting the proposed site, as well as one connector to Gwinnett Street, as approved by the city of Savannah. So again, this was a 2008 rezoning, and those conditions were in question. This was that 2008 master plan that was approved. Fast forward to 2022, this board has previously seen this and given its approval of this configuration, which is consistent with the RMF2 zoning district. And so there were some questions again about those prior approvals, the health club that was to be placed here, also the nature of the use that was to be here. So what's requested now is not necessarily a different use. It is something that is by the text. It is consistent with the RMF2 zoning district, but this is actually the developer wanting to come through with single-family attached dwellings as opposed to the apartments that you see on this 2022 proposal. Maximum density is indicated as no maximum, but the RMF2 zoning district does have a height limitation of 50 feet and a maximum parcel coverage of 50% under this scenario that's proposed. So there are some limitations. It's not necessarily no maximum density. Nonetheless, what you are asked to approve today is, again, consistent with RMF2, and the applicant has effectively resolved all the city's concerns. There's a zoning certification letter that has been attached to the agenda to show that the city's conditions were satisfied. And so you can see this is the newly proposed configuration that shows the circulation. It shows the attached single-family dwellings. It's my understanding that these are all going to be on a single parcel. There are some implications for this if it should be subdivided in the future, but it's the applicant's intent to develop as all of these units to be somewhat an apartment-style development, even though they are attached single-family or townhome-style buildings. So with that, MPC staff, sorry, I'll offer some development standards here. Again, no lane access, 50% you can see is the maximum building coverage, and that height of 50 feet. And so with that, MPC staff does recommend approval of this, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is the applicant available? Come on up.
Yes, ma'am. Josh Allen here today representing the property owner. We do have a representative from the property ownership team along with Thomas and Hutton. Engineering are both here to discuss this proposal. We do want to thank staff for their recommendation of approval. This truly is a very minor master plan amendment. As Mr. Morrow mentioned, our intent here is to get this master plan approved as shown on the screen. From what was approved previously in 2022, as you can see, the street layout and the parking really make it conducive to having a larger 2-building maximum large feeling apartment complex. What we need to do to make this a townhome style development was to come in with the master plan amendment to actually add the additional street connectivity and to break up the massing of the building. And so that was the intent here, was to break it up to make it a townhome style development and to get this new master plan approved. I know there were some comments in the pre-meeting about have we met all the conditions. This site has a very complicated and complex history that would have to go back to when I would have been probably 15 years old, and it was rezoned. I think my dad worked on it then, so we can blame him for the confusion. But in 2006, 2008, when it was approved, there was that master plan that was intended to be, it wasn't even a SCAD dorm, it was a SCAD apartment. And as it went through the planning commission process, they noticed an error on the master plan where they had called out an athletic facility. I think the master plan said it was 4,000 square feet, but they didn't show that it was actually 3 or 4 stories tall. And so city council came in and said, please correct the master plan to show a 17,000 square foot health club. That has since been modified, codified to say you must provide a 17,000 square foot health club on the site. At the time that master plan was adopted, health club was not a use under the ordinance. It was intended to be a private amenity space in connection with the SCAD facilities. Because we can't unwind that condition and because we were already providing the amenity space, we have been working with staff over the past 3 months, and we are including the 17,000 square foot dedicated amenity space on that master plan. There's a zoning letter that's attached to this report that does confirm that we have satisfied the requirement from 2008 and that these facilities we're going to have outdoor recreation, pickleball, pool areas, outdoor space. All of this is going to satisfy the requirement that there be at least a 17,000 square foot health club facility / athletic facility on the property. And so that's what got us here today. And sorry, I took a very minor master plan and spoke a little longer than I intended to, but want to explain the history of the site. And so once again, we do thank staff for the recommendation of approval. We respectfully request that you approve of the same, but we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Mr. Yellen, has the unit count increased?
Has the unit count, I do not believe the unit count, no, it's gone down.
It's gone down.
That makes sense. Other questions? Oh, I have a kind of a side question for you. SCAD apparently owned this property in the past?
I don't believe SCAD ever acquired it. When it went through in 2008, it was done on behalf of SCAD, but I don't believe that the plans ever worked out. One of the prior owners was here. I believe he was the owner at the time. It was intended to be a SCAD project, but SCAD was never actively involved after that point.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Yellen, were there community meetings?
So for this, there's been the community meetings that have occurred related to the Canal District Master Plan. But for this one, with it being a minor master plan amendment to make the townhome use instead of a larger multifamily use, no, there were no community meetings. I did speak to Mr. Mackey about this one and explain what was going on, but he was aware of the proposal for this one.
The season podium. So I was actually thinking of the residents. You can't see it on this screen.
Can you please turn on the microphone?
It's on.
Is it?
Thanks. It's like, it's on. Okay. There's a community, there's another picture, it's not here. You can see 3 or 4 streets on Stiles Avenue. There's some residents there. They've always flooded?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was,
And part of the concern, and from 2022, when this came, this has been kind of the big topic of conversation about flooding here, and why we have had extensive conversations with the city of Savannah on this one, and why this stormwater mitigation pond is in fact massive. What precipitated this, going back to 2008, when they had the original master plan, and I'll go back to this one, part of the reason why we weren't even sure if this hearing was necessary, being a minor master plan amendment, is that this 2008 master plan, as you're being shown on the screen, is entirely not possible. That we're all aware that the flooding was such a major issue that, yes, the city might have wanted this, the Canal District master plan might anticipate this, but it is a pipe dream to have this property currently being developed with the connectivity and going that close to the canal. So part of the consideration here was to put in this large master plan development. This owner currently, and we were saddened by the news about the federal funding that is going to be impacting this, because we had been working with the city for the past 5 years to try and figure out a way to increase stormwater conveyance into the canal, because we know this benefits both sides of the property. So we are coming back with this very large detention pond. We are hopeful that if the canal is widened, that there can be further development in this area. But those conversations have been ongoing for the past, so that started during COVID. That was in 2019 when we've been having those conversations about stormwater impacts and what can we do on this site to actually benefit the entire area and not just this property.
and that was going to be my question. So this basin serves the property, but not necessarily the other areas?
Correct. There's ongoing conversations with the city about if we widen the canal, can we come on this side, or are we going on that side? Those talks are ongoing, but obviously it benefits everyone to have that. We would love to see the canal expanded because it obviously would help with our stormwater as well. And so we're participating in those conversations.
Mr. Stevens?
This is in the same vein, and it's probably more of a question for Mr. Giordano, if he is the representative from TNH
Yes, sir.
for this particular project. And this is just to get an understanding. I know this has no ramifications on the zoning itself. But am I understanding correctly that the capacity of this floodplain mitigation pond, is that solely for this, or has the capacity to take on some additional?
Sure. John, sorry, you done, Dwayne? Okay. John Giordano, Thomas and Hutton, representing the applicant. So part of the city's flood damage prevention ordinance is you have to provide hydraulic connectivity. So this pond is directly connected to the Springfield Canal. So this pond will provide some relief for that canal. As we develop 50% of the site for the townhomes, I mean, that pond is way larger than anything we would need in order to meet our requirements. So it not only meets our stormwater requirements, but it does provide the floodplain mitigation required for raising of that eastern portion of the site. And in doing so, we have to provide that hydraulic connectivity through pipes that will connect our flood pond, our flood mitigation pond, over to the canal. So as the canal rises, that will back into the pond and provide some additional storage in the area.
I appreciate the explanation, and I don't want to get too deep into the stormwater conversation, but this is a very sensitive subject for this community. Will the grading reflect and run towards the pond versus in another direction?
So the roads, will have, standard catch basins in the road. All of the water that will fall on the developed portion of the site will be routed to the pond to be treated. So it won't be running off-site. It'll all go through the pond to be treated, captured before discharged at a, less than pre-development rate into the canal.
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate that. Mr. Yeller, one more for you.
Yes, sir.
You said that it did not, I know this is a update to a previously approved zoning decision. You said you did not have any contact with the community?
So I spoke to Mr. Mackey about this, but other than that, I had not had any, for a minor master plan under the ordinance, it's not one that there's a neighborhood meeting. And also for this area, I will be transparent that it's not within any defined neighborhood association. There have been prior meetings, but when we looked at this minor amendment coming from a larger, bigger box multifamily project to a townhome project.
So it just misses outside of Carver Village?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Yes, sir. It's outside of Carver Village, and it's outside of the adjacent neighborhoods as well.
I know it's not incumbent upon you guys to have to, based off of what is permitted, what is required by ordinance and such and state law, but it would be hugely advantageous to have a conversation with those communities in that immediate context, because that is a community, unfortunately, that is not always informed.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I do have a speaker on, or someone who'd like to speak online. Tanya Tanya?
Bonita Divas.
Thank you.
She has lowered the hand, so I'm not sure she wants to speak. Okay, she has got a question here. Okay. Now you can unmute yourself, please. Tanya.
Thank you very much, sorry.
Would you like to speak? And if so, would you please state your name for the record?
Yes, ma'am, I would like to speak. My name is Tanya Bonnet-Atticus. I am the Savannah River Keeper, and I would like to introduce our concerns that this site is currently flooding. The neighborhoods around it are currently flooding, and that this project likely will exacerbate those issues. And we are not a fan of this project overall. This land probably needs to be maintained as a floodway conveyance, not as an apartment complex.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Ms. Bonnet-Habitus? All right. Would the applicant like to respond?
John Giordano, Thompson Hutton again. Just in response to that comment, as we did when we got the approved project the first go-around with the large-scale multifamily development. We will work diligently with the City of Savannah and the Stormwater Department and the floodplain administrator to ensure that all aspects of the flood damage prevention ordinance have been met. We did that with the first project that was approved by the city, and we will do that again.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I've heard you say that it's designed to take the water from the development. Is it possible to design it to take some of the water from the canal to improve the situation for the residents until the canal is improved?
So keep in mind, the canal, there is direct hydraulic connectivity. So there is a pipe connection from our development, from our pond, into the canal. There is no flap gate or anything like that that would prevent backflow into the stormwater pond. So our development, if you took all the water off our development and dumped it into that pond, and I'm just using just an arbitrary number, it might only, fill up a foot. But because that canal will exceed that, that water will back into our pond, effectively providing off-site storage in this pond.
Is that hydraulic connection low enough to provide some relief to those residents who are flooded?
So the pond itself, we're not going to be able to lower the elevation in the canal. And keep in mind.
Understood.
Yeah, keep in mind, the canal itself isn't super deep, right? Like, I think the canal at this location might only be a couple feet deep. A lot of the drainage problems that are occurring in some of these other neighborhoods, yes, the canal does back up and cause tailwater conditions, but a lot of those other conditions might be due to, some other infrastructure preventing water from getting to the canal. Obviously, we all know the canal is an issue, and the city has that plan in place to improve the canal, but through what we are doing, we are allowing some of that water from that canal as it stages up and floods. We are allowing that water to come back into this pond to act as a temporary storage node. And then as the canal recedes, the water will then flow back out of our storage pond, back into the canal, and make its way on down to the Savannah River.
Understood. The hydraulic connectivity, though, have you looked at those properties that do flood to determine where the flow line is of the connecting pipe versus the ponded water and the elevations where the water is?
No, ma'am, because you
Okay.
got to keep in mind, our site is basically an island unto itself, right? We are surrounded, we've got the canal on one side,
Understood.
Gwinnett Street, so there's literally no way for us to make a connection through any of these other neighborhoods. The only thing that we can do is tie to the canal, and, essentially,
curious.
whatever the water level in that canal is going to be the water level in that pond.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Wait, just,
Go
just wanted to make one comment that, yes, there was an agreement for this development back when there was supposed to be $30 million coming from FEMA for the canal, and now that's not happening. And so there was hope that some of the problems would be solved, and I think we're back at a situation where the communities are flooding, and this project might go forward, and then how do we address the current flooding issue?
Mr. Melder?
Yeah, I just want to give an update on the BRIC grant funding that's being talked about here. BRIC standing for Building Resilience in Communities, which is a FEMA federal grant. City of Savannah was the recipient of the largest BRIC grant recorded, just over $30 million. The current administration signaled their intent to not fund those projects, but we have not gotten a termination letter to date. We're still hopeful that the current administration will realize the great benefit this will have for communities. We're also exploring other options to be able to provide that same, because it's needed infrastructure development on the adopted SPLOST 8 list from the City Council. There's $20 million on that list for backfill of that grant, should it not come through. We're also working with our partners at the Georgia Emergency Management Agency that also has other grant funding that they're interested in backfilling, so that we'll be able to move forward with that project, which is not only expanding the canal capacity here at the canal south of Gwinnett Street, but also improving the drainage systems into Carver Village and into Cloverdale, into the canal. So it's a really, really important project. But we have two contingencies in place should that BRIC grant funding actually be taken away. That's just for an update on the grant.
Thank you.
And to that point, I did just want to mention that we were approved prior to that initial grant funding. The original plan in 2022 has a similar pond to this. Obviously, we would love for that funding to come through, love for the canal to be deepened and have more conveyance off-site, because then we would regain more property on-site to develop. So this has all been done, hopefully as a Band-Aid, so that when funding comes through and we can participate in that process as well for canal expansion and widening, that everyone benefits. The other point to mention is that from the density, since it was brought up, that this project would be going from 314 units down to 149 units. And so we're trying to mitigate some of that impact as well. So I think we've been doing a good job of trying to mitigate the level and intensity of the site, but also hopeful, to your point, that we can all benefit from future canal expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Make that discussion?
No, I was just raising a thought regarding the density. I know oftentimes we make a large argument about less density because of the traffic impacts and all of that good stuff, but on the adverse side of that, with the density decreasing, it draws a level of concern for me because of the affordability component of it and how it's going to directly impact the property values around there and taxes on mostly senior community and or a lower income, mid to low income community where though I don't know if they'll be able to overcome some of the tax burden that they'll probably incur. So that was just, I just wanted to kind of just state that. I mean, again, it really has no bearings, if you will, on the zoning itself, but the density change does draw a little concern for me. I'm typically locked in step and okay with a little less density in certain communities, but in this instance, it draws a little bit concern because it's cut in half.
And I will say, just, it's a challenging site. We have the stormwater issues. There are some environmental issues as well. It doesn't lend itself to being kind of a vanilla box development, go in and, let's try and do the ideal situation. It's an expensive site to develop with, what we do believe is benefits outside of the housing itself in terms of the cleanup and the stormwater, in terms of being better than what the site is now.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Any discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve petitioner's request.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Amick?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
No.
Mr. Coles, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Kegler?
Yes.
Mr. Melder?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
No.
Mr. Notrika?
Yes.
Mr. Plunk?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Wywoody?
Yes.
I say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is a variance to a general development plan, 2110 West Gwinnett Street.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Edward Morrow again. This is a request for variances to a general development plan in association with a rail adjoining intermodal transport site. You can see an aerial image of the two parcels that are subject to this request on your screen. We are in a downtown expansion, future land use designation, and you can see that everything immediately adjoining the subject parcels is zoned for light industrial use. There are some rail lines that are just to the north, and the variances that are requested in association with accessing those rail lines. And so the standards that are at issue here are principally these two. I'm going to talk about two separate issues, the first being the two requests that are before you, but also this is in the midst of specific development plan approval. And so what you're going to see is a container stacking operation that is proposed for the site, but is not necessarily within the scope of the variances requested just yet. The petitioner has requested to deal with these issues separately, but for the record, I'll note that staff is aware of them simply because they are present on the submission that's going to be in front of you. And so you can see on the table here, the light industrial zoning district requires setbacks of 25 feet on the front. For an interior side yard, you can see you have 20 feet, and then for the rear yard, you also have 20 feet. And these are the development standards for uses that are permitted in this district. The proposed use here is an intermodal freight yard, so you can see this is a location where large units of freight, including containerized freight and semi-trailers, are transferred between different transportation modes. So the idea being you're going to go from a truck of some sort to a rail car. Based on what we're seeing on the site plan, this intermodal freight yard is a permitted use indicated by this check on the principal use table. You can also see vehicle and freight terminals. These are all presently permitted uses within this zoning district. Again, because of the nature of the submitted site plan, you can see this is also a proposed container storage yard. Again, not specifically within the scope of the petitioner's request at present, but container storage yard is indicated as a limited use within this zoning district, subject to the supplemental use standards of section 8.5.1. And so you can see those here on your screen, and it identifies specifically some setbacks for containers from property lines. Containers shall be set back at least 30 feet from all property lines, 350 from boundaries adjoining residential zoning, and 50 from within a boundary adjacent to a non-residential district. While I had this on the screen, I'll also show you outdoor storage yards have limited use standards within this district, just in case the applicant were to pivot to a different use. So this is the submitted site plan that we're looking at. This is the structure that is the principal cause for today's requests. The rear yard, you can see this structure fronts on Gwinnett Street. This is the rear, and of course there is another parcel that contains the rail lines here. It's a separate parcel. And so this is your front and rear setbacks that are requested today. Just to share with you with regard to the forthcoming container storage use that is proposed here, there would also be required rear setback relief based on this configuration. The applicant or the representative indicated that they do intend to combine these parcels. And so this property line that's indicated right now, that particular variance might go away in the future. Nonetheless, simply because it is shown, I must inform you that these are all the things that we've identified that are potentially problematic with this site. So again, just to reiterate, the variances associated with the rear of this building and the front adjoining this parcel are the two that you're being asked to consider today. For your convenience, I've also shown a 350-foot radius of this parcel. This is the nearest residential use. Excuse me. These are the nearest residential uses, so you can see we are well in excess of 350 feet from the bounds of this parcel. Also, just to give you an idea of the scale of this parcel, I drew 100-foot lines just to show you that there is significant area here in which to conduct this use. So each of these is 100 feet from front, side, and rear. And so the bulk of this activity is expected to occur within this area based on the setbacks established for this district. And so with that, MPC staff does recommend approval of the variances that are noted on the application, again, with the understanding that everything associated with the forthcoming container yard relief that would be requested, but the front and rear are the two in association with the proposed building. I'm not sure if Mr. Yellen came back, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair. Josh Yellen, representing Poet Terminal Savannah LLC. We have with us from the applicant, from the Poet team, we have Austin, Michael, Kelly, and Paul. We can answer any and all questions that you have about this site, about the operations, about the intended use, and particularly what we're here for today being the variances. I do want to state it's showing that we have 3 variances. It sounds a little bit complex, but I do want to explain the use and what's going on. First, I wouldn't consider our use here to be container stacking. Poet at this location and what we have on our tax certificate is intermodal freight yard. These containers are used by Poet in the operation of their business. This isn't a third-party container yard where we're coming in for clients off-site or for developers off-site and bringing containers here and stacking them. If containers are being stacked, they are in the course of operation for Poet as they conduct their business. What is appealing about this site and what makes this variance unique is that we are adjacent to the CSX railroad line. In order to utilize the CSX railroad line for rail purposes, we need the variance. In order to get the containers onto the rail, we have to put a building very close to the property line and even over the property line so that we can load containers off and on. If we want to use rail line, if we want to get containers off of the street, we need the variance to put the containers close to the property line. And so that's the variance that we're asking for. It's been broken apart into 2 separate variances because Poet is looking at developing the site to the south of the red line. CSX owns the site to the north of the red line. We need a variance for both properties, one being a front yard setback, one being a rear yard setback, but it's for the same building. It's to put a building that spans the property line to put containers onto rail. If we want to use the rail lines, we need the variance. This variance right here is simply due to the fact that the site is currently 2 separate parcels. If this were to be recombined, there would be no internal offset, no variance, no buffer required internally. We simply do not own the property currently. It's shown as 2 different parcels of record. And so as it stands currently, we need a variance in the middle of the site in order to put development on both sides. What should also be mentioned about this site is that it is currently zoned light industrial. We are not seeking a rezoning of the property. The intermodal freight yard use that we are seeking is permitted by right. That use is permitted by right. If someone were to come in here and put a warehouse, it is permitted by right without coming before this board. Manufacturing, light manufacturing, general manufacturing, and light heavy manufacturing are all permitted by right on this property without a change in zoning because it is zoned light industrial. The only thing that we are asking for today is the permission to connect our site to the rail lines so that we can get containers onto the rail. We believe that this greatly benefits the site, greatly benefits the surrounding area to have the containers utilize the rail, which is already there, versus utilizing the street. And so today's variance request has been supported by staff that we are asking for a reduction to the rear yard, we're asking for a reduction to the side yard, and we're asking for relief from the internal lot line. So it's 3 variances, but all related to the same goal, which is to utilize the rail. And so we would appreciate if you would support staff's recommendation on this item, which is to approve of all 3 variances so that this site can be utilized in a manner that utilizes the rail infrastructure that's already in place. And we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Just for a point of clarification, what is the front and what is the rear? I just want to make sure I'm fully understanding.
Yes, sir. So 2 separate properties. I believe that the way, and it's confusing to me, I've had to go through it with both city staff and MPC staff. For this parcel right here, it is a rear yard setback that's being asked for. For the parcel immediately adjacent, it is a front yard setback being asked for.
Can you move your cursor to immediately adjacent? Is that the one?
So if you see the red line,
Yes.
that's the property line,
Okay.
more or less. So CSX property has the 5 different rail lines already on it.
Mhm.
This property that Poet is looking at is to the south. So separate owners, separate property.
Right.
And so we need a rear yard, this arrow, maybe that's better.
Okay.
Rear yard, front yard.
So on the other side of the rail.
Correct.
Okay.
But no, sorry, I
that's
don't want to say
what
on the other side of the rail, on the other side of the property line. I want to see
So
if
the
there's,
red property line.
let me see if there's a different, this could be better. It's a rear yard setback in yellow.
Uh-huh.
The property where my cursor is now needs the front yard setback.
But that doesn't belong to your client, correct?
CSX owns the property, and they had given us the permission to seek this variance today.
Okay.
And that's in the agenda packet.
Okay. Gotcha. I was a little confused on the front yard because I'm just like,
Yes,
where?
no, not
So
to
it fronts the railroad.
not to the front of Gwinnett. It is a front yard of the rail infrastructure.
Okay. Gotcha. So on the other side, if you would, go back to the one with the red lines again. So the red line to the west? Is that west?
This one right here?
Yes. That is one that you guys are looking to procure?
So we are currently asking for it today only because this site is currently two separate pins. If this were to be recombined today, that variance would not be necessary.
Right.
We don't own the property. We haven't recombined it. So we're here asking for that variance, but it will likely be administratively eliminated in the event these two properties are recombined.
No, I hear you, and I'm good with that. But in theory, but I guess the question is, having not owned it in the event that the owner said no, we don't want to sell it, how are we impacting their, I guess, quality of development?
So
with
yes,
zero
sir.
lot line on our side?
Slightly, let me adjust this down. This one's slightly different than your standalone variance going to the ZBA because this is specifically a variance to a general development plan. So if this GDP goes away, that variance goes away as well. So this isn't a global variance that would run with the property in that sense. It is tied specifically to the general development plan that has been submitted by Poet.
And I think my last one for the moment is access to the site. It's intermodal, so I'm assuming that there'll be quite a few trips, especially from a rail standpoint, being able to get things onto the rail, I should say. With that being said, what does the access look like? Because it does currently show that there is a access on Gwinnett existing, but in white, the lighter hatched, it looks like there's another access proposed. Is that accurate?
So I will have, do you want to come up, Michael? Yeah, I will have them speak to the access, but there's currently two proposed access points on Gwinnett. Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
That's fine. Yeah. Afternoon, Mike Carpenter speaking with Poet. I think the question was the white access shown down to the side here. Can't zoom in well, but where my cursor is moving is the proposed office space for the workers at the facility. So that white access down on the southeast of the property is for employee access, vehicle traffic.
Only vehicle, not intermodal.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Welsh?
Yeah, Mr. Yellen, so north of the tracks, covering over the two tracks, closest to the building, that's your loading dock, basically?
Yes. And so those are actually going to be coming through the
Right.
structure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kegler?
Yes, I've got an issue with the access. When y'all change your mode of operation there and start loading onto rail cars, that's going to add a lot more traffic in there. And I'm a little concerned as what the residents in that area, have y'all had an opportunity to sit down with the residents in Carver Village to kind of talk with them and see what, get their input on what the impact is going to be to them?
Yes, sir. So I have not heard from any residents related to this item. Like the prior petition, we're actually not within any neighborhood association. We are outside of Carver Village. Like I said, this site is zoned light industrial. There is going to be a use coming.
Mm-hmm.
When they were looking at the site and looking at the uses, we thought that based upon Poet's proximity to the area and the use utilizing the rail system is inherently less intensive and less impactful than it would be if it was a warehouse or if it was a chassis yard or a storage yard, which would not have the benefit of utilizing the rail. Based on their operations, we have the ability to put containers on rail. If this was a warehouse, if this was straight container storage, if this was chassis storage, if this was manufacturing, I would anticipate a lot more traffic solely utilizing Gwinnett Street without the opportunity to use the rail system. And Poet has been working with CSX and the operator here being Georgia Railroad. They have a longstanding relationship with them. Obviously, we're looking to put as much traffic on the rail line as we can as possible.
And my issue is reaching out to the residents, because a lot of folks in Carver Village in that area, they do use Gwinnett. That's their main point of egress into their neighborhood. So sitting down with them, I think it would be prudent for your team to be able to do that.
Yes, sir. And part of the design of this site, as Michael was just mentioned, we are trying to push, and as Mr. Stevens was asking about, we are putting the employee traffic, being the vehicular traffic, on the side that is closest. I say closest, but I'll put that in quotes. It's still being 1,000 feet away from the residents. And so this was carefully designed to put that vehicular traffic on that side with the truck traffic as far away as possible, being you can barely see it because it's almost off the screen, being closer to 516 on that side.
And is this a 24-hour operation?
Austin Bruyne, Poet. We currently operate 7 to 3:30. The operation.
Other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Mr. Welch, I appreciate that question because I had some concerns. I don't claim to be a intermodal guru or anything of that nature, or even rail for that matter. But I would imagine that moving those containers from a truck to a rail car could probably produce some level of noise nuisance potentially. So I just wanted to ensure that there was some means of not adversely impacting the quality of life based off of the operation and the sound that could be emitted from that site.
Sure. And for the site, like all other industrial users in the city or even all commercial users, the city's noise ordinance does apply regardless of the use. It doesn't really change for the areas. It's measured at the receiving property is how they do it. And so at the receiving property line, I want to say for industrial uses, we cannot be louder than 60 decibels as measured at the property line. So yes, there is noise. I mean, with any use, there's going to be noise for operations, whether this was a permitted by right manufacturing facility that wouldn't be here for approval if we were putting in the warehouse and, building cars here, which would be permitted by right. But we do have the buffers that are shown at the front. We do have the large distance between this and the residential neighborhood. So we are confident that we would not exceed any of the city's noise ordinance violations.
Gotcha. And just as an added point, it may end up being more in the discussion, similar to Mr. Kegler's point, that is a relatively major access point for the Carver Village neighborhood and several of the West Side neighborhoods to be able to get back and forth to Highway 80 and such. So I do have some concerns of the heavy usage of the truck traffic because those roads back there are horrible already.
And sorry. Part of the consideration and why this is coming before y'all and not going to the ZBA as the standalone variance is that Poet has already submitted a development plan for review. So they've been working with the city for 3 months now, working on these issues related to traffic, looking at ingress and egress, working with traffic engineering to try and find a suitable layout for this site. So this wasn't us coming in with a hypothetical and here's what we think will work and let's see what sticks. There have been ongoing conversations and ongoing review with all city departments and staff. This is almost one of the last steps of the process so that we can come back and get that SDP approved.
All right, I appreciate that insight.
Mr. Yellen, I recognize that you stated that this property is not within a neighborhood. This property and all of Poet's property and operations impact significantly the neighborhoods in the West Side.
Yes, sir.
And I think it behooves Poet and anybody who would be using this land to operate as a neighbor of those communities and not as an industrial partner off on an island somewhere.
Yes,
I think that's where we get a lot of our turbulence with some of the industrial operations with Poet itself and our neighborhoods there, and being able to communicate and have relationships with specifically Carver Village, whether it's there on the south side, whether it's going to be on the east side of Poet's operation, is going to be hugely important. If it is, as you say, going to benefit the area and provide some operational advantages to Poet that's going to reduce the impact on communities, I think talking through those with communities would be very important, and it's probably going to be something that City Council would require before making a determination on that.
Yes, sir. And to answer that question as well, and part of this request is that, yes, Poet, and forgive me if I'm speaking too far, Poet does have operations in the area. From looking at this area as having a room for expansion, it is a strategic property in terms of being able to pull some of the pressures off from some of the other industrial sites that Poet owns. Poet has their operations, they have their business model. By creating this as more of a campus, we can move some facilities from their current location to the new location, which we do believe is a great benefit to the community and to the city at large. It makes for a much better project. And this site is strategically sited for the proximity to the rail lines. We are noting that there is a road over here. And this is important to mention in that context, that there is a gravel road that will actually connect internally to other Poet sites. This site has all been developed in a way to make it connected to existing operations, but in a way that can funnel some of those choke points over here to alleviate concerns that we've heard. We understand that this is industrial property, and like many industrial properties in the city of Savannah, and like the petition that's going to be after me today, there are industrial properties that are adjacent to residential neighborhoods. We understand that. We have the property, but what we're trying to do is improve the property in a way that can alleviate and can remediate some of the concerns that we know exist. And this is just one piece of that. Poet has only acquired the property. They bought it in 2022. So since 2022, I've been working with Poet, and I can say that we have met regularly, monthly, for 3 years. And at every meeting, we are discussing ways to improve the sites that they have and improve the conditions of the property, because frankly, some of what they inherited and what they acquired needed work to be done. And they've been working for 3 years to improve that site. And this is just another step in the process of improving the overall area.
Other questions? Go ahead,
I'd
Ms.
like to hear specifically what those improvements are, but for the sake of argument, the one concern that I want to raise is what's the impact on existing traffic that you've been trying to work through? Because I would imagine.
Traffic.
Go ahead.
Mike Carpenter for Poet again. I think the question was traffic count. So no expected increase in traffic count on Gwinnett. Josh mentioned the driveway access for truck traffic up here. I'm circling with the mouse on the northwest corner of the site. That will be ingress and egress for all truck traffic onto the property straight onto the highway. So that driveway leaving the Poet property be right-hand turn only, and then left-hand turn onto our property. So no impact to any of the rest of Gwinnett or any of the Carver Village streets down along Magazine side avenue streets.
Mr. Kegler, did you have?
Yes, I'm going to follow up on comments from city manager. And I understand this is already zoned, and there are a lot of usage that y'all can do without doing anything. And some may be a little more intrusive than what y'all are proposing. I think communication with the neighborhood is going to go a long way, and I think that may smooth out the path for you. So that's kind of a suggestion I would make before we move forward, is for y'all to set up that neighborhood that meet on a regular basis. And I would suggest that y'all schedule time to meet the neighborhood association before we move forward with it.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
I share the same sentiment as the city manager and county manager. But I do have one last question that just for the good of the record. Does this operation by any way have any foreseeable environmental impact based off of how you guys operate?
No, sir. It's mostly grain. So we're transloading grain. It comes in from the Midwest, and it's essentially dried corn. Essentially, what the product is. So no real environmental impacts.
And that goes for maintenance of containers and trucks and all that good stuff. That is not something that's going to be internalized on that site. It's limited.
Currently, we're doing some maintenance on the site, on the property that we do own.
Okay.
So nothing outside of what's going on today.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no problem.
And my apologies, that was my fault for not explaining what POET does. POET produces bioethanol. What they use the Savannah terminal for is that to produce bioethanol, you have spent grain products, you have corn and wheat, and they then send those overseas, which are used for feedstock and for fertilizer.
Yeah. So yeah, we make renewable bioethanol, like he was talking about, by corn, make it into ethanol, which is essentially vodka, 200 proof alcohol. Used for your car. The co-product is called dried distillers grain, or one of the co-products is. At this site, we're taking that dried distillers grain out of a rail car, putting it in a shipping container, and we ship to 20 plus different countries all around the world. And it's just it's livestock feed. It's animal feed. So that's what we do at the facility here.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Kegler, can you
Yes, sir.
state your name for the record, please? We're just making sure that our transcript can be done properly.
Michael Kegler. Just to the owner, I've heard that there's a smell coming from the grain. So I had the information I got was y'all were cooking the corn, and so y'all not processing anything. Is that what I'm hearing?
So currently, in the current operation, there can be a smell if the product ever gets wet. So part of the approval of this project will help us to build the building that we're talking about here, which will keep the product from ever getting wet. When it gets wet, it makes a bad smell, but there's no cooking of the corn happening on the site. It's just a logistical system of conveyors that takes it from a rail car into a container.
Okay, more questions? Go ahead. Say your name, please.
Amanda Wilson.
Thank you.
Mr. Morrow, can we go back to the screen where you did the bird's eye view where we see the nearest residential? So
Not far.
we're looking over at the right-hand corner. That's residential, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. So are there any near parcels that are similar to this, that's connecting to the railroad, that's around this area that would be similar to this? Do we know?
Right offhand, if you don't mind reframing the question.
So I'm wondering if there is another parcel that connects to has the connectivity to the rail close to this neighborhood.
An alternative site for the proposed use, potentially.
Not an alternative site, just one that is in close proximity that's similar.
If I may, like a precedent?
Yes.
And I would say most of the properties
Along there?
that are adjacent to the rail are strategically located to take advantage of the rail lines.
Okay.
There's the CSX line, and then Mr. Morrow has it on the screen, but there's multiple rail lines that you can see now on your screen in this area. And so this was always been kind of the CSX hub for rail. And so most of these properties that you are seeing here, and then here, and then here are connected to rail access.
But are they currently being used? Are they developed? Are they developed and are currently being used? Are the people in Carver Heights,
Yep.
Are they familiar with the sound that is coming from yards that are connecting to the rail?
Yes, ma'am. These sites are all, and even over
All
here,
they're
are heavy
connecting.
industrial, and they are utilizing the rail. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just something for the record for everyone that I did want to make mention of what Mr. Yellen said about a light industrial zone from the property line. The decibels that is allowed from the property line is 60 decibels
I believe so. I would need to double check the city ordinance. But 60 is, I believe. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So one issue that I have when we talk about industrial sites, light industrial or especially heavy industrial, when it abuts residential is, what's written in the ordinance as 60 decibels. So I'm not a sound expert and whatever, but you can go online and look at what constitutes 60 decibels. And 60 decibels is no louder than normal conversation. It's dishwashers. And 70 decibels is vacuum cleaners and traffic. 80 decibels is a police siren. So I don't know of very many in this site also in particular as a light industrial and even a warehousing that would fit in that 60 decibel sound and would diminish the enjoyment of someone's property and the noise and odors and whatever. But I think that is something that we need to consider when we're looking at these light industrials, because another thing is the backing up of trucks, the beep, 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 that can be 112 decibels. And hearing that all throughout the night, all during the day, and I'm glad to hear that the hours of your operation, but I don't see how this use and what is going to be used for is going to meet that 60 decibel.
And if I may just respond quickly, that to be clear, we are not adjacent to any residential property. It's the property with the red dot and this adjacent property. This is an adjacent industrial development. This is an adjacent industrial development. This is an adjacent industrial development. This is the city's interchange, the Floyd Adams campus that's down here. This is residential over here, but we do not share any property boundaries with any residential property. I used to be on the City of Savannah's noise ordinance task force when that used to exist. So I maybe am slightly qualified to speak on it, but I hope not. But for the 60 decibels, yes, it is correct that 60 decibels, and part of the conversation that we were having at the time was that this is a very hard standard. And I think the example that we typically used was that 60 decibels was the sound of a hairdryer. But the point that they mentioned is that that decibel is read at the property line. And so, yes, there can be noises internally, as we all see, whether you're at your house or if you live near a restaurant or live near a bar. When you go inside, that can be louder. That's fine. But at the property line is where it's key to measure it, which is also why the new City of Savannah ordinance and what was shown on the site plan shows a large buffer surrounding the properties. And we're not asking for any buffers here or any variance to the buffer. We're still adhering to the front yard buffer that will insulate this site. And I want to say the City of Savannah's ordinance here does require a 40-foot vegetative buffer along with a fence. So there are mitigating factors here that do insulate this site from the noise, because we, of course, don't want to receive a citation for having a noise enforcement violation for having a sound that is a hairdryer. But the site is buffered and insulated to prevent that runoff. And even further, if there is a noise ordinance violation, which I don't think there would be, the receiving property here is other industrial users who are likely having similar noises. We are not adjacent to any residential property.
Mr. Welsh?
I would just like to add, if I may.
Please put your mic on and state your name.
It's on. I just don't have a red light
sorry.
like y'all. Joe Welch. I'd just like to make a comment from experience, coming not just from a car family, a railroad family. My father, my grandfather, even my brother worked on the railroad, and I've been to South Over Rail Yard. I know where these rail cars are. I've been to loading docks. But I will say, truly, to the sound ordinance, you will have more noise. Now, remember the hours of operation till 3:30. you have less noise loading that trailer onto a rail car than you will have all night and day, wee hours in the morning, of the railroad cars buckling than those other 3 tracks that are sitting there. Because they're right now, you go there loaded with rail cars, and you have continuous buckling of the engineer hooking and unhooking, and that is louder than you can imagine if you ever been in the presence of one. I've been there, but it's just take that into consideration that there's a lot more noise going on after hours of their operation, just with that, than you will have a trailer loaded onto a boxcar, onto a rail car.
Go ahead, Ms. Bowles.
Lorraine Bowles. I have a question. I just wanted to ask Mr. Yellen. You made a comment that this project would alleviate some of the issues that you've heard at other sites. And so my question would then be, would it exacerbate issues at this site for people who are traveling Gwinnett or live nearby?
And I don't believe that will be the case. As Mr. Carpenter mentioned, they were looking at the traffic counts for this area. Part of what makes this unique, and hopefully not speaking out of turn here, is that Poet is an existing owner operator in the area. They have their trucks, they have their containers, they have their employees. This is not a site where we are coming in and saying, hey, we are new to the Savannah market. We want to come bring in our new containers. We want to bring in our new trucks. We want to bring in our new operations. This is being sought after because it is adjacent to existing operations. So we know that we can move facilities over. We know that we can move staff over. And we know that that can alleviate those concerns. So if this was an all new user coming in, or if this, as I mentioned, this site is light industrial, if we were coming in to make car batteries here, which would be allowed by right on this property, yes, that would have 100% more of a disruption. But here, because we know the operations are immediately off site and we're trying to tie everything together, that yes, from the traffic studies that we've looked at, there will be a reduction, or as I shouldn't say reduction. I believe the engineering term was no net increase. And so I should say no net increase in terms of the traffic. Yes. But
beyond traffic
for the operations as well. It's an existing operator, an existing user. And so this gives them, what I would say, this is some breathing room here, that they can take operations from where they are currently, expand over here, but also take those operations out in a way that lessens the impact to the east.
You're saying the adjacent property is also owned by Poet?
So these two properties are not. This is rail property, but what was shown on the development plan was a connection over here where this is Poet property. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Wywoody.
Tom Wywoody. The gentleman's about the product. I had just trying to get in my mind's eye how this is all going to work. So are the containers coming in full on the train, or you're bringing in container traffic? It'll come down 516, get off 516, and then go in that ingress egress on the western side of that property. So
yes. Oh, yes, sir. So the containers are actually empty when they come in from the port, and they would be the containers will be coming in on 516 and entering here. They would simply get loaded, put into a full stack, and they go back to the port. Same way operations exist on the current yard today. And I want to make it clear that a lot of this traffic that exists today exists further to the east or the southeast, and this would just be moving it further away from that residential area.
So no truck traffic beyond that ingress egress there.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
Other than the ingress egress we have on the other property today. But again, the idea is to move most of those operations to this property.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Bowles.
I wish things worked the way they were supposed to, right? So I have personally stopped trucks from going east on Gwinnett. Not necessarily your trucks, but it just doesn't work the way it's supposed to. I've sent a letter to traffic engineering from the city. I did not get a response. So let me think about that. I just want to make that for the record that, yes, I understand how it's supposed to work, but it doesn't necessarily work that way.
If I may, Austin, Poet again. So we have a third-party truck company that works for us. We don't own our own trucking company, but we have made it very, very, very clear to our trucking company that they are never supposed to go down that way. I've seen trucks do it. I want to make it clear that we do our best to try to never let that happen. And rarely would you ever see our trucks down there.
Do you penalize your truck drivers or the truck company?
Oh yeah, they're never allowed back on site in some cases.
They what?
They've been never allowed back on site in some cases.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a few. One for Mr. Morton. Edward, could I bother you for a second? Sorry.
That is absolutely why I'm here. I'm sorry.
So when we did this, I mean, this property is very familiar to me. We had a lot of discussion on it when it came through the first time.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was a sorting facility. We were going to do recyclables. And we did not require that they recombine the property.
So the previous petition in 2022-23 was a special use request.
Yes.
It is very likely, this was prior to my time here. I would expect that there was not a great deal of site plan discussion, technical site planning. There may have at the time been some concerns about buffering and traffic access, very, very pointed concerns. Generally speaking, however, we're talking about technical site plan related issues, the number of trips that would trigger a traffic impact study or things of that nature. So at that time, I imagine the discussion was quite different, just because it was special use versus a site plan request.
Understood. But during that discussion, we did not request that they recombine the parcels to develop their property?
It's my understanding the request was actually denied. So there would not have been any
developed at this point in time.
That is correct. It is vacant. Mm-hmm.
So have we heard from residents in the area?
I have not received any response.
No comments?
No public comments in relation to this petition.
Gotten some? Okay. We have 3 years of meetings with the Poet group, and we didn't have one citizens meeting. That too is alarming to me. And that's for Mr. Yellen.
But if I could just add, staff is always going to refer to the ordinances and secondarily to any established policy documents. This is a site plan variance request, which does not require a neighborhood meeting. All required notice was
understood. We talked about that in regard to a different project, but it's always good to get neighborhood feedback.
And to clarify the point from the prior petition, that was a special use approval, which, as y'all know, but I will state it for the record, is for uses that are permitted, but might be slightly more intensive and there have to go through a more rigorous review. The use that we are proposing today is not a special use. It is a permitted by right use that we need a variance to make the use make sense and use the rail. But the special use 100%. And what happened with that prior hearing, I do believe there were about 7 conditions that MPC staff had placed on that approval. And I believe one of them was the recombination, but it never went to city council. Okay. Feedback was received from this board, and then it simply died on the vine and went away. And so there's no current use condition that required the recombination. It's still 2 separate properties. Obviously, should it be developed and should Poet develop it, they would likely recombine that.
So the plan that we are looking at, or that we were looking at, what shows as existing was the original plan, but is not existing.
I'm not sure.
Dark gray area versus the light gray area.
But that just might be how it's laid out on the site plan, because the site is not developed currently.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mike Carpenter again. Dark gray versus light gray is internal cement coloring so that we know thickness of cement. That does not denote separations of any existing.
But there was a comment made that the light gray was where the new office building was going to go, and all of the office people would be using that drive, and the existing drive would be the one that would be used by the trucks. But it is not really an existing drive at this point.
I can actually show you that. It's difficult to see here, but there is an existing drive here where my cursor is moving.
Okay, that's not even on your property, is it?
It's just off the edge of the property with the shared GC owned property, so we're moving that drive a little bit to the southeast, but there is an existing entrance.
So there is no existing drive on the property.
Just that one that is there.
Yep, an existing curb cut, but it's not really in use.
Okay.
Right. It's as if you drove over grass a few times and now the grass is gone. It's not formal.
Yes, ma'am. I think there might be some historical access to the site that's been happening there.
Yeah,
but it was not our intent to call that, an existing driveway. The site plan is new locations to better facilitate traffic than using what's there.
Sorry, I mistook drive as access. So both of these driveways are part of the site development plan. They'd both be new driveway requests through the traffic department.
All right, Mr. Stevens, state your name, please.
All right, I promise I think I'm done after this one, then we can get into it. So you indicated that in the patching, if you will, it's showing the level of concrete, and I see in your key it also indicates that that is indeed the case. So you said the darker, not the stippled, if you will, but closer to the edge, where it's kind of right where you have that strip right at the bottom edge of the darker, right there where your cursor is that a thickened concrete?
That is,
go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So I'll answer it all at once. The dark gray here, speckling and kind of moving my mouse through it here, that is all thick concrete that would receive full container loading on it. Specifically, it would be the heavy equipment noted in the intermodal freight use case that we'd use to move that heavy equipment around. The light white color here, speckled on the bottom, is a thinner concrete level. That's for employee traffic, cars, stuff like that. What you see in the darkest sections here, those are actually the shipping containers. So that's where the containers will be placed in the means of operation. So they'll place empty containers along the southern border of the property, pick up full containers on the northern border of the property.
That was exactly what I was trying to get to. That's single height of containers that's along that side, because that was one of the concerns, not necessarily for you all, but that was one of the concerns from the previous petition from a prior owner, having activity that close to the Gwinnett Street side, specifically if it were stacking or whatever the situation may be, the view shed from the community side of things. And I think you said there's no residential there, but still, as a main point of travel, it's not necessarily the prettiest thing to take a look at.
Yes, sir. I think staff's recommendation report notes that as well. There is, I want to say it's a 40-foot setback requirement for any containers to be stored. So we meet that. On top of what's in green here is a landscape buffer. So that'll be trees, beautification of the street yard.
Okay.
And on top of that, a fence as well.
Okay. So, but you think that it may be a single stacking, or you can't say that for sure?
We would anticipate meeting the current ordinance restrictions, which is 3 containers high.
Gotcha.
And presently, your organization does its work on the other property?
We do have several properties in this area that we operate out of. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the other property is considerably closer to the residential development, correct?
That is correct. Both properties are close to the residential development.
Pull up that's the one. Yeah, so the 4010 is your prop there. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the property that we're discussing currently is these 2 sites right here.
And where's the work done now?
So work is now done. I'll let them explain operations, but
yeah, work is currently done essentially right here, and the stacks are
virtually adjacent to the residential properties.
Correct.
Okay. So you are moving further away from the residential properties. And what will become of the property that you have your cursor on now?
The plan is to not utilize it in the near term.
But you do have a little drive going from this one to that one. So
Could utilize it for overflow if we need it, but we're, for the most of the day-to-day operations would be moved to the other site is the idea.
Yeah, and this does function as a much larger campus, and so it all is integrated between this site here, the drive aisle here, and then existing operations. Yeah, and then there are other yards.
No, much more than that.
This yard just went through this is another one of our rail yards here, went through an extensive beautification project here.
What is the buffer on this property?
With the acquisition, at least, yeah.
The height for
buffer?
Sorry, for the buffer, I want to say for the type E buffer, it's 40 feet with either a 6 or an 8 foot fence.
Go ahead.
Purely for the record, not related directly to this petition, as we are continuing to sit here and talk about this, again, purely for the record, there has been some correspondence with the highest levels of city leadership about noise concerns at this particular parcel. I did not receive those in association with this petition, but as we've continued to talk, I received a call to go out to this specific property right here because of a noise-based complaint. I was unaware that this current applicant may have been the one who was perhaps making the noise that generated the complaint. But again, purely for the record, I have received a complaint from this property owner in the past. This was in the last six months.
Okay.
Yeah, and Poet has a good relationship with that property owner. I will say that we're aware of the complaints and we have since made that right. I can say that with full transparency that there has been ongoing dialogue for the site, but part of the need for today's request is exactly these noise ordinance concerns that there has traditionally been, and probably for the past 60 to 80 years, been an industrial use here adjacent to residential properties. That property is zoned industrial. The uses are permitted by right. We are trying to find that escape valve where we can take those intensive uses and move them in close proximity. This is kind of one of these opportunities that we have here where we have the operator on one side. They are looking to acquire the property on the other side. And so it is a perfect match here that would not be apparent if this was a different user coming in with a new use. That this is a symbiotic relationship where we can come in and improve the entire area, even if today what we're discussing is a variance to let us put containers onto rails. So thank you.
Let me just ask, there was some discussion about 3 stories stacked, cars stacked 3 high. Would, and you talked about the green buffer and the 40-foot setback. Will you be able to see those containers as you're driving down Gwinnett?
I'm not sure if they've done a line of sight there for it, because there's 2 separate facets to the ordinance. You're absolutely right. There's the container stacking plan, which is separate and independent from the zoning, and that does need to adhere to the City of Savannah requirements. So that's a separate submittal, kind of unrelated to today's application. But with a 40-foot buffer and the fencing, I'm not sure if you would be able to see it. As you can see now, the site is pretty heavily vegetated. And if I were to, see if we can, I know you're aware with the site, but for everyone who is there, it's pretty vegetated as far as sites go within the City of Savannah. They will preserve as much as possible. I do believe the ordinance requires supplemental planting if necessary in that buffer zone. And so it is a good thing for there. I don't want to say it's good and bad, but sometimes containers can also mitigate noise, whether you want them at the front or want them at the side. There's kind of a catch-22 there, as do you want containers stacked there at night when they could, impact and buffer some of the other noises. But it is a type E buffer that would be required at the frontage of the property, even before there would be any containers.
I understand there's no height limit. I'll just add for the record that the other site that we were looking at, I've seen them stacked 5 high.
And so
that's part of the issue, I would imagine.
And so that's not permitted under the city ordinance. And if it was 5 high, I don't believe it's at the Poet property. There is an adjacent property that we have been through this before, where we were receiving complaints, and it was, Poet, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And it was not Poet. It was an adjacent operator who had been stacking too high. But for this site here, yes, there's no height limit, but I want to say we don't have it on here. These buildings are tall enough to get the containers into the rail. It wouldn't make sense to have a 5-story building and then drop them down.
All right, any other questions? I do have Ms. Bonate Tibus as a speaker again.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the last name.
Please state your name.
Tanya, that's all right. Tanya Bonatadibus with Savannah Riverkeeper. We have a lot of concerns with this site, largely because of the stormwater conveyance. During recent rain events, the site was inundated for multiple days, proving that it is an important conveyance of the stormwater through those existing communities. It has served as an equalization basin for those wetlands for quite some time. And in fact, I was wondering if I could ask if you could turn on the wetlands layer on the site so that people could see the level with which it is currently stormwater retention. I'll continue. The special conditions exist because the applicant is considering developing a land that supports a floodplain. There is no hardship in this petition because the property owner already has rail access on another site. But as you can clearly see, this is all place that is needed right now for flood conveyance.
That's quite revealing.
I'm sorry, one more thing, please. The reasonable use of this land would be something less intense with its zoning. The section of Gwinnett is already very dangerous, as you've talked about with heavy truck traffic. We're also very concerned about the density. But again, making sure that we're not exacerbating the flooding for the existing communities is incredibly important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for her? All right. Would you like to rebut?
Yeah, we can talk to some of those points. Mike Carpenter again with Poet. As Tanya requested, the floodplain mapping is shown here on the property. A couple points of comment. The current property owner has already received permitting through the Army Corps of Engineers to develop this site. All of those floodplain credits have been paid for. So regardless, current owner, new owner, Poet being that owner, the ability already exists to develop this property. We're just hoping that we're the ones that can do it. On the site plan that we show here, I want to move your slide, I apologize. We do have a stormwater retention pond on the southeast corner of the site. You see a little bit here across from the driveway entrance. And what is difficult to see here, but we also have some underground detention below our paved area as well. All of that designed for excess of 100-year rain events. So we will be maintaining all of the 100-year rain events on our property. We will not be adding any flooding to any of the neighboring zones.
All right, thank you.
That's right. And so that the ponds serve your site.
This does serve our site, and it actually is going to be increased to pick up the existing GC-owned railroad site to the north that is part of today's rear yard setback, front yard setback petition.
Other comments? Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to grant the 3 variances petitioner requested.
Second by Joe Welch.
Did we have any conditions on the?
There were none suggested.
Just checking. Oh, there was. Oh, no. Okay. The 3 variances. All right. I have a motion and a second. Ms. Amick?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
No.
Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Kegler?
No.
That was no?
No.
Okay. Mr. Melder?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Notrika?
Yes.
Mr. Plunk?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Woody?
Yes.
I too say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is a text amendment, ILR zoning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This is Edward Morrow. Our next petition is a request to amend the text of Savannah's zoning ordinance, specifically in relation to the light industrial restricted zoning district. In looking at the zoning map, there were 41 unique parcels that would be impacted by this request, the thrust of which is to designate two particular uses as special uses that would require issuance of a special use permit from Savannah City Council. There are also some clarifying amendments within this proposed text amendment and some additional text that has been requested. And so in looking at this, the amendment of the ILR district is requested by the neighborhood for the purpose of making vehicle and freight terminal uses and vehicle towing and impound facilities within this zoning district special uses. And so a special use requires an application to first come to the Planning Commission for recommendation and subsequently go on to City Council for a final determination. As Mr. Yellen indicated on the last petition, special uses are those that could be appropriate within the zoning district, but this board would first review it for the purpose of considering things like neighborhood, particular neighborhood considerations, neighborhood level concerns, to ensure that the receiving neighborhood is well situated to receive what could potentially be a noxious use otherwise. In addition to adding the special use requirement for these two uses, modifications to certain other sections of the ordinance related to outdoor storage, outdoor sales, the particular operation and configuration standards for vehicle and freight terminals that I will detail in the next slide, clarifications regarding outdoor display areas, clarifications for principal use outdoor storage areas, and ultimately the establishment of a new minimum fence and buffer standard. The majority of these text amendments are aimed at making the ordinance a bit more understandable and predictable, if you will. These are relatively mundane, but very effective in making sure that as individual uses come through within this zoning district, to make sure that neighborhoods would see buffers rather than seeing industrial uses, making sure that sales areas outside look a little bit more aesthetic, things of that nature. So the ILR zoning districts, while very restricted, they are industrial districts. Many of them are older facilities that happen to be in relatively close proximity of neighborhoods. And many of these things are aimed at just streamlining that process of evaluation and making it clearer and more aesthetic for these neighborhoods. So this is what the proposed principal use table would look like. Should this request be approved, you would see vehicle towing and impound facilities as well as vehicle and freight terminals receive an S to become special uses. The only full addition, I would say, occurs in section 8.6.4 with regard to adding clear vehicle and freight terminal uses specific to the ILR zoning district. And you can see this sets some parameters for these uses, hours of operation. Unless a larger buffer applies, it sets a type B buffer as the minimum. Pole mounted lighting to ensure that lights are not throwing light over onto adjoining residential properties. For vehicle shipping uses, vehicle stacking space shall be provided within the site at a ratio of 150 linear feet of stacking per acre. What this is getting at is a context like Staley Road, where you have a very, very narrow street. It is ensuring that you're not going to create a traffic backup where you've got trucks that are attempting to get from that street onto their site if they are delayed for some reason, if there's a holdup at the entry point. So again, as you can see, many of these are aimed at just making sure that these uses are compatible when they go into these often somewhat residential adjoining districts. With that, MPC staff does recommend approval of this. Again, outdoor storage in the ILR, these are very slight amendments to the language regarding outdoor storage in the ILR, configuration of outdoor sales and display areas, the addition of the standards regulating the two particular uses in the ILR, the clarifications regarding outdoor display and principal use outdoor storage areas, and the establishment of a new minimum fence and buffer standard for principal use outdoor storage areas. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Is there a petitioner on this one?
This was put forth by the neighborhood. The neighborhood is the principal applicant here.
Okay. Is there a representative who would like to speak?
Ms. Jones, I believe.
Apparently so. Please come up and state your name for the record.
My name is Glenda Jones. I am the president of the Liberty City of Richfield Southover Community Improvement Association Incorporated. This particular text amendment, I'm very happy to have sat in on the last discussion, because one thing Mr. Stevens did say, we talk about quality of life. And in ILR, quality of life for residents is very, very difficult. Whereas the last petition was in a light industrial on Staley Avenue, where my residents in my community live, the light industrial properties can be right beside these homes or right directly across the street. So when we look at this text amendment and we're requiring for a special use, it gives the residents an extra layer of comfort as to what can happen in those areas. So we're just asking you to please approve this text amendment, because I don't know if you know, but living in an IRL is very, very difficult. It's not comfortable for those residents that live there. And we're trying to do everything as possible to improve the quality of life that they have there. Any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Melder.
President Jones, I just wanted to thank you for you and the Neighborhood Association's leadership on this, and for working closely with city staff and MPC staff on, I think, something that is a meaningful change and provides some extra layer of protection and participation for the community. Also being, understanding that light industrial businesses are important for our economy as a whole, but tough to live beside. So thank you so much for the leadership on this effort.
And thank you. I do want to thank the staff for assisting in this particular endeavor. And Liberty City is a neighborhood that wants to be in the forefront of change for all of the residents. This does not only concern us, but it concerns other neighborhoods that have this particular designation. And believe me, as long as I'm president, we will be in the front run. We will be front runners in trying to implement change for the comfort and the quality of life for residents in the city of Savannah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Thank you.
No question, but I just want to comment similar to Mr. Melder. I want to thank you all for stepping forward as one of the communities that oftentimes get adversely impacted, and being willing to step out front and show that there is a process in which the change that you wish to see can actually happen.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate you guys being an example of that, and I hope that other communities see this and recognize that there is an avenue to getting the protections in place for their communities. So thanks for being that example.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions, comments? No public that I'm aware of. Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Stevens, I move to approve as recommended in the staff report. Excuse me.
Full second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Ms. Amick?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Mr. Kegler?
Yes.
Mr. Melder?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Notrika?
Yes.
Mr. Plunk?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Wywoody?
Yes.
I too say yes. We finally got a unanimous. All right, our next agenda item is a future land use map amendment from plan development to commercial regional, vice versa. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. This is Edward Morrow again. Our final two petitions today are related. They are a joint future land use map amendment and rezoning or zoning map amendment for 5 West Gateway and 0 Fort Argyle Road. You can see the subject properties outlined on your screen here. The future land use map amendment is requested to redesignate this property as commercial regional. It is currently planned development, and to rezone the property from planned community business in Chatham County to BC within the city of Savannah's new zone. So again, the future land use map is presently indicated as planned development for this site. And you can see that it is surrounded by other sites that are also indicated for planned development in the future, but it also adjoins that commercial regional area. If you're familiar with this location, you know that there are several regional establishments. It's kind of a gateway. It is a place where there are tons of hotels, there are fast food restaurants, things of that nature. And so it is an area where we should expect ideally planned development in the opinion of staff. Also, we can see that the zoning map indicates commercial community level business in this area. It is an area that is in transition. You would go from that regional gateway feeling to something that would feel very general, sort of commercial suburban context into an area that begins to feel somewhat rural as you head out westward on Fort Argyle Road. So. Just to offer you some background, this is a petition that was held for a while because it did go through a development of regional impact. And so it took several months, unfortunately, to kind of get that wrapped up. But the results of the Coastal Regional Commission's analysis came through, and just to show this is in an area that was identified on the significant natural resources map. Again, it's located at the northwest quadrant of Fort Argyle Road in the I-95 interchange. There's presently no Chatham area transit service here. That would be ideal at this location. It is within the airport, airfield overlay district, and the military zone. We are not far from a military installation here. You can also see from the ARSA map that there are AE flood zones to be concerned about on this parcel and wetlands. If you are looking at your bottom left of the screen, you can see that the level of service in this area currently for traffic is not particularly great, unfortunately. But again, this is kind of a high volume area where we're seeing a lot of development down Fort Argyle Road headed out westward. So. This is in the suburban commercial character area as indicated by Plan 2040. Consistent with that, the county currently has this indicated for community business zoning. Purpose of the district is to provide community shopping facilities consisting of a wide variety of sales and service facilities at locations accessible to a market area containing 35,000 to 70,000 people. So this is a regional shopping area. The present zoning is consistent with that, and the requested zoning is very similar. The requested zoning district, while it would not have the P in front of it, again, within the city of Savannah is BC. I would say, again, this is big box retail oriented development, though there are a wide variety of uses that are permissible in this district. The only residences that we would expect would potentially be upper story residential, though I will say institutional uses like senior living facilities and things of that nature would also be permitted here under this zoning. This is not an exhaustive list. These are screenshots of permissible uses within this zoning district. I will say it's important to pay attention to this simply because in staff's working on this, it is very much unclear exactly what this would be. This is significant to note because while planned development would be the preferred future land use, we can achieve a similar effect by requiring a general development plan. Again, it's a large tract. It is unclear what the balance beyond a couple of specifically identified things would potentially be. So we can achieve the very same thing that our policy documents are attempting to convey to us. The most interesting thing about this petition is going to be the zoning history. So there was an LDP, a land disturbance permit that was issued for the clearing of the site back in 2022. Ultimately, the present property owner and potential developer, was given a stop work order after it was determined that they had violated the expectations of that land disturbance permit. This is also a property that is requested for annexation into the city of Savannah. It currently has business zoning. In order for it to be developed at any scale, it requires water and sewer. And so water and sewer are probably the primary driver, at least from staff's view, as to why you would be interested in annexing. So there was obviously some development entitlement associated with that zoning, and thus we could expect that the land would be cleared simply because it's already zoned for this use. Thankfully, we have county staff here, Jake Henry, who's going to speak to you briefly in just a second, but I'm going to get out of your way in just a second. So the mitigation plan that Jake is going to discuss is right here. You can see there were some concerns about wetlands that were impacted, and there were also some conditions that were placed by the county in an effort to mitigate what had been done to the wetlands. This is the concept plan that staff did receive in association with this petition, and in reviewing this, it became clear that the developer does not have a clear intent for this particular parcel. Again, neither here nor there. This is already zoned for general commercial use. And so in attempting to kind of achieve something that reflects what the protections of the current B zoning district, staff is recommending approval with the condition that we receive a general development plan that would include, at a minimum, wetland fill preservation and buffer areas, an identification of upland developable areas, identification of open space to be preserved, stormwater management features, and probably most importantly, circulation and access points so that we understand where we might see wetland impacts in the future, how it is that the developer intends to move people through the site, how it would be developed. And what we have also added here as a second condition is those that were added by Chatham County's Department of Engineering as a response to the identified violations of the land disturbance permit. And so Chatham County Department of Engineering has requested that the site be brought back into compliance with its ordinances and any applicable federal, state, and local permits. That they remove excavated root balls from the wetland area, remove the fallen trees and equipment from the buffer, install and repair all necessary SESCO BMPs in violation, reinstall and repair the silt fence, reinstall and repair tree protections, verify land disturbance within wetland is less than 0.1 of an acre, submit a corrective action clearing and grubbing plan for areas in violation of Chatham County's land disturbance ordinance and soil and erosion sedimentation control. And finally, any disturbed soil must be stabilized in accordance with the Manual for Erosion and Sedimentation Control in Georgia. So staff is recommending approval with the requirement, again, that this come forward with the general development plan permitting development on the site that does take into account the very well-established environmental concerns here. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Is the applicant available?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Travis Burke with Coleman Company. We are representing Blue Heron Development LLC, or I think it's Inc., for this petition. Like Mr. Morrow had mentioned, so the purpose of this even being presented to you guys today is for an annexation. This property is located in unincorporated Chatham County. Our client has owned this property for over 20 years, so they're not somebody who just came along recently, bought this property and trying to develop. They've owned it for a long time, and they just recently decided that they wanted to develop the property. So the first thing that they had asked to do was to get a clearing and grading permit to get in there, clean up the property. There were some homeless camps and stuff on the property. They were wanting to get all this stuff cleaned up, and so they got the required permits through Chatham County. And as we were talking with the county about what the future development plans were, that's when they had indicated, probably should talk to the city about water and sewer. And so our thought was this property has been in the gateway service area for a long time. When you look at the service area maps for water and sewer, a portion of the property is indicated in there. So several years ago, or back when they first purchased the property, it was not uncommon for property in unincorporated Chatham County to be served with city water and sewer. And it wasn't until recent years that that policy has changed. So that's when we were informed that if we wanted to develop the property, we would need to annex into the city of Savannah and develop through the city of Savannah. So that's kind of what brought us to where we are today. So we filed a petition for annexation. We've gone through all the different hurdles that are associated with that through the DRI, submitting stuff through the city. With the annexation comes a rezoning. So we didn't necessarily want to rezone the property. Our client was very comfortable with being in the PBC within the county zoning district. So it's not like they're trying to look for a use that was not otherwise approved on the property or anything of that nature. They're just wanting to develop the property that they've had for over 20 years. And so this was the process that we were told that was required in order to get to that point. As far as the impacts and the issues on the site, they did have a permit, an LDP from the Chatham County to go in there and clear and grub and install some drainage ditches and stuff like that within the property. Unfortunately, their contractor was overzealous. He was not following the rules and got themselves in trouble due to basically the contractor's issues. The developer had no intent to go and do these violations. Obviously, that was not their intent when they wanted to clear and grade the property. They didn't want to get in wetlands and disturb wetlands and things of that nature. They got a bad contractor, and we've been trying to work through that since then. So there are some corrective actions that need to take place on the property to get it in full compliance with the county. It's obvious by the photograph that they showed earlier that, the site had been cleared. So those things do need to be taken care of without a doubt. But that's kind of the reason why we're here today, and the reason why we're presenting to you guys for the rezoning. Really, we just want to annex into the city. We'd have been happy to come in as PBC-CO and keep the county zoning and not rezone the property. But we were advised that this was the appropriate condition was to go to the city's equivalent zoning. So that is the reason for the zoning request and needing to update the future land use map, because right now we are planned district, but by putting us in a PBC, being a BC district, we're no longer planned, hence the need to update the future land use map. So what started off as just a simple conversation with the city about getting water and sewer service turned into an annexation, turned into DRI, has now turned into rezoning of the property. And so that's why we're here before you guys today. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Before I get into, I do have a question, but just as a point of order, I may have missed it. I don't know if it was moved, but are we not needing to do a flume amendment first?
We are meaning to do a future land use amendment first.
Okay.
You got some background as to why we're here and why the request was being.
No, I was just looking at what's been presented, and this was specifically for the rezoning. And that's why I was just order. I was just trying to make sure we're good there. But since we are hearing this, how much of the corrective actions to date has occurred to your knowledge?
County gentleman or Wesley Green with us is a little more familiar with exactly what has occurred at this time.
Hi, Jake Henry. I am the Urban Forestry Program Manager for Chatham County. I was involved with the permitting process with this project. The vast majority of those issues have been resolved. There was a buffer mitigation plan that was approved to repair some of the buffer that was encroached upon. That is really the only item that remains that primarily comprises of planting trees to replace part of that buffer. That's pretty much the last item required, and upon a final inspection, bonds would be released to the property owner, and then we would be, everything would be in compliance.
Thank you for that clarification.
It's pretty much impossible to bring it back to where you had originally permitted, isn't it? If you come back up to the mic, sorry.
Can you clarify about where it was originally permitted?
Well, in the letter that you wrote to them originally, you said this is to provide only clearing that is necessary for installation of BMPs is permitted at this time.
Yeah, so for clarification, for the stop work order, when that is issued, all they're allowed to do is install BMPs. The stop work order was then released when those BMPs were installed and we received the buffer mitigation plan. They were then allowed to continue their clearing operations.
Okay.
So the order was released. I'm not sure exactly what date. This is prior to my tenure at the county.
Okay, this looks like it was the actual permit letter. Initial clearing approval.
Yes, ma'am. So with the county, their process is once you get approval, all you're allowed to do is install the BMPs, and then we
Yes.
go and inspect. The county comes out and inspect, and if everybody's in agreement with how they were installed, then you're allowed to continue.
But it
with.
sounds like your contractor basically clear cut the entire site rather than just install BMP.
He got overzealous, and
Developer really wasn't on top of him, was he?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That was all I had. Did you have anything more, Miss? Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
No, I don't have any public comments. No public comments? All right. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, we do need to do the flume first. So I'm willing to entertain a motion for the flume amendment.
I don't have a slide for it. Yeah, I apologize. That's an oversight on my part. I didn't have a separate approval slide for the flume amendment. Yeah, I was.
Do we have a particular recommendation for the flume amendment?
The recommendation is approval.
Plunk, I motion approval of the flume amendment.
Ross, second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Amick?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? I'm sorry, Mr. Kegler?
Yes.
Mr. Melder?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Notrika?
Yes.
Mr. Plunk?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Welsh?
Yes.
Mr. Wywoody?
Yes.
I too say yes. All right, now the zoning.
I motion that we approve the rezoning.
Ross, second.
Up. Do you want to add conditions?
Were there any conditions recommended?
Yes, there are.
Right in front of me.
So the first one, again, staff has the ability to send this site plan. I fully recommend sending a general development plan so that once a piece of this property comes in, you're not then forced to backtrack and try and understand what's the vision for the entire large parcel. So that's the interest in condition one. If the majority of the conditions set by Chatham County Engineering have been met, number two may not be necessary, but number one is still recommended.
Yeah, I'm going to modify my motion to include the staff recommendations that go along with the approval here in front of us all.
I concur.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. This is for the rezoning. Ms. Amick?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mr. Coles?
Yes.
Mr. Kegler?
Yes.
Mr. Melder?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Notrika?
Yes.
Mr. Plunk?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Wywoody?
Yes.
I too say yes. All right, motion passes. Thank you. And we are done with the regular business. We have we do have a presentation, but we have it under other business. The hotel overlay study. We also have nominations for executive board for MPC. Are there any objections to moving that one forward since Mr. Coles will not be able to be available for or to see the hotel overlay? He may stay online, but I think he's interested in the nominations. Y'all are okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe that Mr. Notrika has the list.
I do. The current slate of candidates are for Chairman Travis Cole, for Vice Chairman Tom Wildwood, for Secretary Lauren Bowles, and myself, Jeff Notrika, for Treasurer.
All right. Are there any additional nominations? All right, we have a slate of candidates. We will move forward with the election at the next session, our next meeting.
Do we make a motion to accept?
Oh, please do.
Make a motion, we accept the list of candidates for officers' positions.
Second?
Plunk, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good deal. Hotel overlay. Ms. Liddy.
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Liddy. I'm Director of Planning and Urban Design with the City of Savannah. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I'm here to talk about the hotel development study. Let me just double check. Let me start the slideshow. So over the last couple months, more like 2 years, we've been working on this particular project with the neighborhood representatives as well as with stakeholders. And we're pleased to report to you today that we have gone through that process and we have come up with some recommendations on how to move forward. And what I would like to say is that today I'm just here presenting this information to you. The goal is to come back to you with a formal presentation to secure a recommendation where the options that we're presenting would be considered by council along with your recommendation. So this is just a backdrop to give you more information and provide some discussion as we move forward with the process. So we do have a current hotel overlay district that is in our ordinance. It was created back in 2018, and it specifically applies to the Savannah Historic District. And it distinguishes the different types of hotels that we have as far as the sizes go. So we have large hotels with this overlay, which is 75 rooms or higher. And then we have small hotels, which are 16 rooms to 74 rooms. So it distinguishes the size of the hotels. And they're only allowed in certain areas and they have to front certain streets. And so the image that you see here is actually what is in the ordinance. With the pink representing no hotels, the yellow representing small hotels could be permitted as long as they're on those streets that are highlighted in red. And then the green area where hotels are permitted once again, but the hotels have to front those streets that are highlighted in red. Since the inception of this ordinance, there have been 2 changes to it. The first was a text amendment to allow for the Manger Hotel, which was previously a hotel, to be reestablished as a hotel. So there were changes associated with that. In addition to that, there was an addition to the map to allow a property on Cohen Street to become a part of the overlay. And so 2 changes since the inception, which was back in 2018. So when we look at the ordinance, we have the text amendment, but we also have the principal use table. With the principal use table, you can see here where hotels, both the small size and the large size, are permitted, and in which zoning districts. Within the context of the current hotel overlay, you can see with the downtown districts where they are permitted and where they are permitted by special right. And what I would say is the use standards, which is on the far right side, is highlighted as 713. That pertains specifically to the hotel overlay for the downtown historic district. And so what transpired, and you all might remember a couple years ago, we had the neighborhoods coming to you, which included Victorian, Streetcar, and the Kyler Brownville neighborhood, to petition to prohibit hotels in their neighborhoods. And with that, it would be, they proposed to extend the hotel overlay into their communities. And that's what you see on this map here. And the main reasons why they were looking at doing this was to provide the items listed here, negative impact to neighborhood quality of life, which are associated with hotels in their perspective. Also to help maintain affordability within their community for residential homes, encourage infill, multifamily and residential housing, and provide a more rigorous public review process for this type of use. What I will also say is that in reviewing their comments, they also wanted something that the development community always advocates for, and that's predictability. They want to know whether or not there's going to be a hotel on the vacant lot around the corner from where they live. And then they also want to maintain the fabric of the community and not have that change. So with that, the petition was presented to you all, and ultimately what happened is there was a letter that was sent to the City of Savannah and to you all here from the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Association, the Savannah Economic Development Authority, as well as the Tourism Leadership Council, specifically requesting a timeout before moving forward with the petition to allow for additional engagement for the process. And what I will tell you before is when prior to the adoption of the 2018 Hotel Overlay District, there was a great deal of dialogue with both the residents in the Downtown Neighborhood Association as well as the tourism industry in reference to coming up with the final recommendations which were adopted as part of our zoning ordinance. So this is just a brief outline of where we were and what we have done over the last 2 years with this particular project. And what we were looking at specifically with the 3 neighborhoods, when we honed in on where hotels could potentially be developed in the areas, it's primarily in the TC1 and the TC2 zoning districts, with the caveat that it's a special use permit, meaning that it comes to you all, and then once it comes to you, it goes on to mayor and council for ultimate consideration. Within the context of these 3 neighborhoods, only smaller hotels, so those that are 16 rooms to 74 rooms, have that provision. Large hotels are not permitted. One interesting feature about that is with the special use qualification that the use has, or requirement that the use has, is that typically we refer to Article 8, which has limited and special use zoning use standards. And with this particular use, we have no standards. So when you go to 8436 in the zoning ordinance, the only thing that's there is reserved. So there are no standards for the special use for hotels. When we look at the hotel development standards, they have to follow the exact standards that are in the ordinance regarding development standards. So that's the setbacks, the footprint, all of those different aspects of development standards. They also have to follow the general site standards. And with the TC zoning districts, just to let you know, the TC1 has a maximum footprint of 5,000 square feet, and the TC2 zoning district has a maximum footprint of 10,000 square feet. And the maximum height for TC, both zoning districts, is 3 stories at 45 feet. Within the general site standards, within the Victorian and streetcar district, there are parking standards. The typical parking standard for a hotel is 1 parking space per each room. But within the context of our zoning ordinance, we have a reduction in Victorian and streetcar district at 25% for that parking standard. And there are also other standards there that allow for alternative parking arrangements such as valet parking, shared parking, et cetera. Within the context of any development, they would also have to comply with the development standards that are with the historic overlay districts. So when we went through this process, we looked at revising the hotel size definition. And you can see here when we were kind of playing around with the principal use table, how we added hotel motel at a smaller size from 16 to 40 rooms, kind of a boutique style hotel. And then we also looked at, taking it from 41 rooms to 74 rooms, kind of like a mid-sized hotel room. And with that, moving forward and looking at this, it created a lot of dialogue, specifically looking at adding additional use standards, which I'll get to in a moment. So when we looked at the zoning districts, we identified the TC zoned districts, and you can see on your presentation here where the pink is obviously no hotels. But where the blue is would be those TC zoning districts. So similar to the provisions that are in the ordinance for the hotel overlay in the downtown area, we looked at those streets that had a lot of traffic on them, those arterial streets, and also overlaid that with the TC1 and TC2 zoning districts, which is typically where that zoning is located, and looked at different scenarios of where hotels could potentially be located in that smaller threshold of under 40 rooms. And we looked at Bull Street, Henry and Anderson, MLK and Montgomery as one scenario, and then all the way through going back to MLK, Montgomery, Henry and Anderson. And so you can kind of see the different options and scenarios that we considered as we went through this process. And when we got together with our stakeholders, we talked about that. They were very much in favor of looking at that smaller hotel size for options, and then looking at those designated corridors for potential fit, and then also looking at amending the commercial use standards. And so when we talked about amending the use standards, saying that, hey, the hotel has to front an arterial street, you have to have on staff 24/7, 7 days a week, which typically with a hotel, that's a requirement that is required. The screening and buffering has to be honored and complied with. There would be no reductions or no variances to that. Design standards for mechanical equipment and refuse is required. Once again, no reductions. If there was an outdoor pool, it could only be accessible with hotel guests, and the building footprint could not exceed that minimum requirement or the maximum that was allowed. Similar to what I mentioned to you all before, the TC1 at 5,000 square feet and the TC2 at 10,000 square feet. So the neighborhoods were very active with this process. I have to give them a lot of credit for moving forward. We worked with them, and they came up with a fantastic survey that they did with over 700 responses for the 3 different neighborhoods, and they all worked together, which makes things a lot easier when you're working with different neighborhoods. But out of that 700 plus response rate, about 56% represented the actual people living in the neighborhoods. So from that, what we gleaned from the survey was that for the Thomas Square neighborhood, about 64% of the residents in that neighborhood were not in favor of any hotel. And as it went through to the Victorian district, that increased to 74%. And then for Kyler Brownsville, that increased to 90%. And then looking at the options of the different corridors and where corridors could potentially support the different small use hotels. When we looked at Bull Street, the response rate came back as 68% were not in favor of any on Bull Street. Henry and Anderson, 70% of the people were not in favor of that, and 62% were not in favor with that for MLK and Montgomery. So when we take the neighborhood results, we looked at the opposition and what they were truly saying, and it was similar to what I was talking about before. And then the people who were actually supporting it were talking about economic benefits and revitalization, as well as enhanced services and amenities. But going back to the opposition, it really verified what the neighborhood was talking about before in reference to wanting more predictability, making sure that their character of their community would not be changing. So as we sat down with the stakeholders after that survey, we kind of got into the weeds and said, where do you all want to go with this based on the survey results and what we currently have in front of us with the work that we've been done. The neighborhood continually advocated for no hotels within the 3 neighborhoods, period. And talking with the hotel industry, they were at the table, and they were saying, hey, we're in favor of looking at a smaller size hotel up to 40 rooms, as I mentioned earlier, looking at designated locations for those hotels that are more on commercial corridors, and then looking for amendments to the special use permitting process to ensure that the neighborhood character would be protected. And so as we moved through the process, we continued to flesh out those items. Our stakeholders discussions came through at one meeting. A member of the tourism industry came through and suggested an area because the neighborhood was saying, hey, we prohibit the hotels anywhere in our community. And the representative came through and said, hey, what about Henry and Anderson, solely facing those 2 streets between Whitaker and Drayton? And that was not something that was palatable to the neighborhoods, particularly the Victorian district, which is where it would be impacted. And that's the block that has the Sears building as well as the AT&T Bell South building, and a few churches, and SCAD is located on there around that area. So what did we come up with? We came up with 3 different options. The first option was to have the hotel overlay district expand into these neighborhoods, but allow it in the TC1 and TC2 zoning districts. And with that, you'll see the map that is in front of you, and those are the parcels that it would impact. Option 2 would be that example that I just gave you, prohibit it, but allow it in this particular area on Henry and Anderson, between Whitaker and Drayton. And then the third option is an outright prohibition across the board for hotels within the context of the 3 neighborhoods. With that being said, as part of the recommendations, we would look at adding special use conditions to that section 8.436 to ensure that whatever happens moving forward within the TC zoning districts, these standards would be in place. The room size wouldn't be more than 40. Such development would be part of a mixed-use development. 24/7 operations would be on the site. The screening and buffering I mentioned before. And then another item that's on there is for the pool usage, making sure that there's an affidavit that any outdoor pools proposed as part of the hotel development should be accessed by only hotel guests. And then the building footprint of the proposed hotel development may not exceed the minimum allowed by the development standards for those permitted uses. So that's that 5,000, 10,000 square feet based on the different zoning districts. In addition to that, making a recommendation and revision to the principal use table to add that section, which has the special use conditions listed. So that is our report. As I mentioned, this is the presentation where we're giving it to you for discussion and consideration. We'll be coming back formally to present this as a text amendment and a map amendment. And then whatever your recommendation is will be forwarded on to Mayor and Council for further consideration. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Melder.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Bridget and city and MPC staff for working on this item, and to thank our 3 neighborhood associations for bringing these petitions forward, and for helping us and staff and all the stakeholders involved get these recommendations down to kind of brass tacks and sharpen pencils on what would be a permissive use of hotels, what would be a restricted use of hotels, and what would be a prohibited use of hotels in these 3 neighborhood districts. And I think that's exactly what this process has yielded, has sharpened the pencils and gotten down to the specifics about those 3 options. And I know that we look forward to this body's recommendations on how to move forward in the conversation I'll be having. I wanted to thank the neighborhoods and the city and MPC for moving this. This is really difficult work, and for moving it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
So I appreciate seeing this effort and look forward to voting on it, because this has been a concern for all of those named communities for a while. So I appreciate seeing it, and it looks like it's been a very thoughtful process.
I too thank you very much for pulling the information together. Go ahead, Mr. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Woody.
Has there been a deluge of requests to build hotels in these areas?
We have not received any requests for hotels in these 3 areas at this time.
All right. Any other comments? Mr. Nochika?
So, Bridget, we've got 3 starkly different options. The first one seems actually probably the most fair and balanced of the 3. Do you have any other insights into that versus the other 2?
I don't. What I will tell you is just a little bit of history with the TC zoning district. Within the context of the TC2 zoning district, hotels were permitted as small hotels when the streetcar overlay was approved.
And inns are still permitted, aren't they?
Yes, ma'am, they still are. And so with that, during the deliberations of NUZO, the TC1 zoning district was added for hotels. But once again, it was listed as a special use, but no special use standards were ever developed. And I think that's kind of a critical thing. You mentioned that number one seems like a fair and balanced approach. It is, because we need to make sure, if it is, that we've got those special use standards in place.
So let me see if I understand then. So if the overlay gets enacted, it still won't affect the inn provision, or it will prohibit
It will
them?
not. This is solely for the use of hotels.
So inns 15 rooms and less will still be allowed?
Correct. As is, nothing's getting changed with that.
Thank you.
And what I would say, it might be that as you all deliberate on this, that maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe there's a recommendation number 4 that comes out of this as another scenario. But definitely 3 different options. The neighborhoods I know are very passionate, which is understandable, about what they want to protect. And I also know that the industry is also out there promoting their efforts. So it's going to be a delicate balancing act. But I think we have 3 options, and there might be another hybrid that comes out of your deliberations.
One concern I do have is the Henry Street, Anderson Street area. Putting hotels on there, I think, would generate problems with traffic, people not knowing about the one-way streets, and I see some confusion with traffic on that one, but.
Good point. All right.
Anything else? Thank you very much. I think we're done with business. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Thank you, guys. Only